Let me try and give you a peek behind the curtain here. What Kant is trying to do is ground morality in logic. He's trying to say that being bad actually does not make sense. Try as you might, you cannot escape the laws of logic. And Kant is trying to make morality as inescapable as logic by saying that ultimately, it comes from the same place. The built-in restrictions on the ways that it makes sense for people to think. This leads us to the categorical imperative. The categorical imperative just means the thing that you have to do all the time, regardless of circumstance. It's an imperative, an order, which applies categorically. I ought never to act except in such a way that I could also will that my maxim should become a universal law. Now this is often misunderstood, so stick with me. Kant is not saying that you should only do something if it would be good for everyone to do. That's not what he's saying. If everybody stole stuff all the time, yeah, the world would be a pretty rotten place to live, but that's not why Kant thinks you shouldn't steal. He says that you should only act if it makes sense for you to will everybody to act in the same way. Take lying, for instance. Sometimes you might want to tell a lie. Kant asks you to consider whether it makes sense to will that everybody lies whenever they want to. In a world where everybody lies, the whole concept of truth and lies would break down. Nobody would trust each other. And in such a world, you would not want to lie, because it wouldn't get you any advantage. There'd be no point if everyone was doing it. Remember, the moral law has to come from you, from your will. So if you will to tell lies, you have in fact contradicted yourself, just as surely as if you broke the laws of logic. Your will must be consistent. That's what the categorical imperative really says. It's like, thy will shalt make sense. You've just got to ask yourself, does it make sense for me to will everybody to do what I want to do? Kant tried to explain the categorical imperative in a number of different ways, which is why he gives not just one, but 3 different formulations of it. He thought that moral rules were universal. Just as you are capable of listening to moral reasons, so am I, and so is everybody else. This leads us to the second formulation. Act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or the person of another, always as an end, and never simply as a means. This calls us to respect other people's status as beings of moral worth, as well as to respect ourselves and cleave to our own inner moral voices. This formulation does prompt some interesting questions. For instance, when I go to the bar, am I not treating the barman as a means, not an end? I'm only talking to him because of what I can get out of him, right? Same's true of doctors, taxi drivers, most people really. And yes, that's true, but it's not really a problem for Kant, so long as we remember that those barmen and taxi drivers and so on have their own ends, and it's not okay for us to step on them. Like, I wouldn't enslave that barman and force him to serve me drinks. That really would violate the categorical imperative, but as long as he is producing the service voluntarily, then that's okay for me to consume the product of it. Now, if you've seen my series on Karl Marx, you might be saying, well, hang on a minute, Ollie, do people really produce goods voluntarily under global capitalism? And yeah, okay, that's a discussion we could have, but that's how it's supposed to work. For Kant, anyway. The final formulation reminds us of the responsibility of being a moral being. Act as though through your maxims you could become a legislator of universal laws. Here, Kant asks us to remember that we are always, in a sense, setting an example to other people. In what we do, we contribute to what is normal human behavior, and we have a choice to make about whether to make that normal behavior good or not. He also reminds us that the moral law has to come from us. We place it on ourselves, and sometimes we might have to do that against what our other desires are. Of course, if you're very clever, you'll have noticed that Kant's moral philosophy really depends on free will. If you can't freely place the moral law on yourself, then this whole project isn't going to fly. That's something that didn't escape his notice either, and it was central to his work on free will, which is another story for another time. So that's Kant's moral philosophy. If you're ever lost, just remember that the moral law has to come from within you, and its chief commandment is, thy will shalt make sense. Leave a comment telling me what you thought, and for more philosophical videos from me every Friday, please subscribe. And if you'd like to support me in my efforts to put education onto YouTube, then you can find PhilosophyTube on Patreon. This episode was filmed in YouTube Space London as part of YouTube's Next Up Creator Camp. I want to say thank you to Carly Toffel and Cameron Sanderson for being in it with me. You can see them in the bar scenes, and you can find links to their channels below.